My name is Greg Ingalls. I'm the Executive Director of Kidsport Alberta, and I'll be acting as your MC for this morning's press conference. Thank you for joining us at the beautiful Genesis Center today to launch new supports to help kids get back to playing sports and activities that they love across the province. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that Calgary is on Treaty 7 territory, home to the Blackfoot Confederacy of the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, and Tsuut'ina, as well as Stoney Nakoda nations of Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley. This area is also has deep importance to the people of the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We are joined today by Minister of Culture Ron Orr and Steve. No worries. Yeah. We are joined today by Minister of Culture Ron Orr and Steve Allen, the Executive Director of the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association. I'd first like to invite Minister Orr up to the podium to tell us about this new initiative.
Thank you so much, Greg. Great to be here. And thank you, Steve, for also joining us. And I also want to recognize MLA for this area, Devinder Tour, as well here with us today. So thank you for your support and contribution here. So yeah, we're here today at the beautiful Genesis Center, a recreation facility in Northeast Calgary, for a good news announcement. But I have to say, it's not just a good news announcement for Calgary, it's for all of Alberta. It truly is. I'm just excited to be able to be part of this initiative because it's an important initiative. It really is. I've been passionate about it for quite some time, and here we are today finally to be able to make the announcement. Let me back up a little bit by saying that our government recently announced the Child and Youth Wellbeing Action Plan. It's a document that outlined 10 key areas of support to help children, youth, and families who were most impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. The challenges we all face, we all know about. The report identifies actions that the government is taking both through new initiatives and existing programs and resources to help those groups focus on well-being and resiliency. One of the recommendations, number 5, was for the creation of more opportunities for children and youth to have improved access to culture, arts, sports, and recreational activities. And so today I'm focusing on the last two, and I'm happy to announce that we will be helping to create more opportunities for improved access to sport, physical activity, and recreational opportunities through our Return to Play funding program. Alberta's recovery plan helps create new opportunities for every Albertan, and that's exactly what Return to Play is all about. It provides children the opportunity to participate in sports, physical activity, and recreation, even though they do not have the financial ability to do so. Our government believes that participation should not be dependent on economic circumstances or ability. And that's why we are committing $4 million to this program in an effort to help kids do what the title suggests, which is Return to Play. Why are we doing this? COVID brought many challenges for sport, physical activity, and the recreation sector. Opportunities were scaled back, interactions were limited, physical, mental, and emotional health declined, as has been documented. Kids need to be able to play, to grow, to develop well, to develop social interactions, and our government knows that the pandemic created various challenges for Alberta families across our province. So my goal here has always been and will continue to be to make lives better for Albertans across our great province, including, and maybe I should actually say, especially for youngsters. Many of our sector's organizations have also faced challenges over the last 2 years. Many of the organizations have shared with me that the volunteers have disappeared, whole programs have ceased to exist. They're shut down, they're gone, and this is a challenge for us as a province. Alberta's government wants to help its children get back into sports and help organizations that make that possible to get back on their feet so that they can begin programs again, so that they can recruit and train volunteers, so that they can buy equipment, all the things that it takes to make it happen. Of that $4 million, a total of $2.1 million will be directed towards 140 nonprofit and a few for-profit organizations in the form of grants up to $15,000. The grants open today, June 29th, and will be accepted until funds are distributed, or until August 7th, I think is the intended closing. The grants will help support these organizations in the delivery of sports programs in communities all across Alberta. Some of those grants will support participation in disability and parasport recreation activities as well. And to help us implement this program, we have chosen two strong Alberta partners, Kidsport Alberta and the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association. Kidsport has a wealth of experience granting funds to children and youth to help subsidize the cost of participating in various sport and physical activities. The Alberta Recreation and Parks Association is a staunch promoter and has been for a long time in Alberta of creating a healthier and happier Alberta through its development and promotion of recreation and parks. Although it's important to support the organizations in the sports sector that make these activities that we love possible, we also need to make sure that children, or particularly families, can afford to register their kids. And that's why 1.85 million of the funding will go to Kidsports to distribute directly to Alberta families who cannot afford registration costs to get their children into sports. This will allow more than, I think more, I don't know, maybe 7,000 children anyway, roughly 7,000 children, to receive grants of up to $250 to help cover registration costs for sports programs. These grants could offset registration fees for programs like lacrosse or swimming or soccer like we have here behind us, gymnastics, dance, hockey, any kind of organized sport essentially. So I'm really excited to be a part of getting this off the ground for the benefit of children and youth in Alberta so that they can get back to play. And at this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Greg to talk a little bit about Kidsport's involvement in this really exciting initiative to help Alberta youth. So thank you very much, and Greg, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Minister Orr. This is a great day. We're going to help a lot of kids with this funding, and really want to thank Minister Orr, Tim Bjornson, Marvin Dobish from the province, everybody who has contributed to get us to this day. For those of you who don't know, Kidsport is a program that assists kids from low-income families into sport by paying for their registration fees so that they can play. We have a framework of 39 community chapters across the province, mostly run by volunteers who raise money in their own community to help kids in their own community. And these dollars are going to go to those chapters to help them get more kids playing. In our last kind of normal year of sport in the province in 2019, Kidsport helped over 13,000 kids into sport through our program by raising $3.2 million across all of our 39 chapters. In addition to our chapters, we also have a provincial fund which provides funding for kids' registration fees in communities where we don't have a chapter. And then in the last couple of years, with our friends at the Indigenous Sport Council of Alberta, we've established the ISCA Indigenous Kidsport Fund, which is specifically to help kids living in Indigenous communities into sport by paying the registration fees. So this funding is going to go out through our regular granting program, the $1.85 million that the minister mentioned. Will go out directly through our chapters, through our existing framework, existing grant program to get kids back playing. The second component of the program is a sport organization grant. Kidsport works with over 1,500 local sport clubs across the province by sending checks directly to them for registration fees for kids to play. And so we're going to be able to help them with the sport organization grant program as well, up to $15,000 per organization, to ensure that they continue to be strong and that we have a strong sports system in the province for kids to play. Just before I finish, I just want to tell a quick story. We're fortunate at Kidsport. We get to hear all the success stories that happen because of our program, and I want to tell you about one of them. About 20 years ago, a gentleman named Yembe Moiba immigrated to Canada as a 6-year-old with his single mom and five siblings. He got to high school and wanted to play football, and he went to his mom and said, Yembe, he said, Mom, I'd like to play football, and his mom said, Yembe, that's not something we can do. But fortunately, Yembe's football coach, high school football coach, knew about Kidsport and had his mom apply. It was a $120 registration fee for football, and he played all 3 years. He was pretty good at football. Got a scholarship to the University of Alberta. Played there, got his accounting degree, and he is now the treasurer of the Kidsport Society of Alberta. He's just an amazing young man. Coaches youth football in Edmonton, and it's so cool that we were able to help him change his life, which is what this is all about. So thank you. Thank you as I said, to everybody involved. Thank you for entrusting Kidsport to help us get kids returning to play, because it's important that they get back to playing sport, physical activity, recreation in the province. Thank you. So I will turn it over to Steve Allen from the Alberta Recreation Parks Association for a few comments.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Minister Orr. I think such a powerful story, Greg, and that's why we're all here. Sport, recreation, and physical activity really changes lives, and it's great to be in the Genesis Center today as well, with all the activity going on behind us. Anytime you come into one of our rec centers across the province, you'll see activity from the morning to the evening. So, the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association is excited to play a collaborative role along Kidsport Alberta, along with funding support provided by the Government of Alberta to coordinate the Return to Play program. The Alberta Recreation and Parks Association is a not-for-profit organization committed to building healthier and happier communities and citizens by developing and promoting recreation in parks. We have over 1,700 members that represent over 120 municipalities from all across the province. We believe recreation and physical activity are a public good and are vital to all communities. This much-needed investment in the sport, physical activity, and recreation sector will provide support to community grassroots organizations and programs. ARPA, Alberta Recreation and Parks Association, will be coordinating $850,000 of the grant specifically towards recreation and physical activity programs. These much-needed grants will support programs to be more accessible and affordable for children and youth in all communities across Alberta, as well as targeted funding specifically for programs with a focus on persons with a disability. Children and youth were heavily impacted by the pandemic and need accessible and affordable opportunities now more than ever. Albertans now have a greater awareness of the broad benefits these sport and recreation programs can provide. Not only will they positively impact physical health of our children and youth and our families, but they will also provide the much-needed mental and social health benefits as well. ARPA looks forward to administrating this grant to help community-based organizations reduce barriers and ensure children, youth, and families of all abilities can access opportunities that match their individual needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all for being here today and help us launch the Return to Play program. I know it's going to make a huge difference in the lives of children across Alberta. That concludes the formal portion of today's event. I'll hand the microphone over to Savannah Johansson, Minister Orr's press secretary, to moderate questions from the media. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Greg. We'll take some questions from reporters now. We will start with folks here in person. If anyone has a question, then move to the phones. Just a reminder, it'll be one question, one follow-up. Please state your name and outlet for the record. Does anyone in person have a question?
Sorry, I would like to have a question for Mr. Ingalls. Yeah, about the story that you shared. Yeah. And I don't want to try to make you cry, okay? But I just want to ask you a question.
I have to
It's like
practice.
it made you emotional to talk about this story and share that with us. It's a success, it's what I understand. It's also the fact that it was not a lot of amount of money, but that changed the life of someone. Can you explain us why telling that story touched you so much?
Well, our program, while we get kids into sport, it's not about creating the next NHL hockey player or Olympian. It's really about providing an opportunity for kids to play and to learn life lessons that they learn through sport. And I know Yembe is such an amazing young man today because of his involvement in sport. So that's what our program is about, is learning life lessons through playing sport. We believe in the power of sport to change the lives of kids. That's one example, but there's all the life lessons you learn by playing sport: teamwork, hard work, how to set goals as an individual and as a team. That there's rules and consequences for breaking those rules. There's all kinds of life lessons that you learn on the playing field. And the thing that is so important is that I was one of those kids that never learned very well in the classroom. I learned most of my life lessons on the playing field as well. And because it's fun, it resonates with kids. And the life lessons themselves are more meaningful to them because they're playing something that they really enjoy.
At the time that you helped Yembe, you gave like $120, right? And today it's $250 that you can give with that money.
Up to 250.
Up to 250.
We still have some programs that are less than 250 that will that we assist kids into, and some of our chapters will be able to bump up the 250 to 400, 350, $400 as well, depending on the chapter. Each chapter sets their own limits for that.
In Alberta, especially in Calgary, there is some people who can afford that money, but many cannot. Can you explain how this 250 is that important for family that cannot afford, for example, to pay rent or something like that?
Yeah. Well, it's really about access to the sport system, community-based, community-level sport, where you're playing with kids that you might be going to school with, that live in your community, so you can make those friendships. Maybe after your practice is done, you go home and you play a pickup game of basketball with some of those same kids because they live in the neighborhood. It's about creating community. It's about creating friendships, teamwork, all of the things that come with it. But that community level sport is so important as an entry level to the sports system. Kids don't become an NHL player if they don't get into sport at the entry level system. Same with becoming an Olympian. It all happens because they started playing sport at a young age, and that's what this program is going to be able to do, is to provide that access to the community level sport, which is so important. Well, it's just something that they can't afford. We use the federal government's low income cutoff plus 30% for our kind of base level to be able to access Kidsport funding, and at that level of income, they're just not able to afford sport. So we're able to cover the registration fee. We have some equipment partners in Sport Central in Edmonton and the Flames Sport Bank in Calgary that provide sport equipment for the kids as well, and so they have the ability to be able to play.
Great, thanks, Greg. If there's no more questions in person, then we'll conclude our press conference for today. Thanks, everyone, for joining.